Dr. Shagun Mehta. I am a pathologist by profession. In my continuation to previous video, today I will be discussing a very important topic, that is adaptability. We human beings, we have a very unique perspective of adjusting or adapting to our surroundings. And you know what? There is a microscopic cause to it as well. And in this video today, we will be discussing about that. So firstly, if we start, how a cell will respond. What is the response of a cell if it is subjected to any stimuli? This stimuli can be in the form of any stress or there is increased work demand. So how a cell will respond? So if we want to study about that, we need to know the various stimuli to which a cell can be subjected to. So if we look at here, the number one, the various kinds of stimuli, the number one is altered physiological stimuli. What does that mean? That means the stimuli is non-injurious. It's not lethal, but it is altering the physiological properties of the cell. Right? The name itself suggests that it is altering the physiological properties of the cell. So, if there is a stimuli in the form of altered physiological stimuli, what will be the outcome? What it is called? It will lead to cellular adaptations. Right? It will lead to cellular adaptation. That means if this stimuli is removed, the cell will regain its original state. That means the cellular adaptations are reversible in nature. What are the various types of cellular adaptations that we need to know? Number one, hyperplasia. Okay. Number two, hypertrophy. Number three, atrophy. Number four, metaplasia. Okay, so what are the four cellular adaptations? Hyperplasia, hypertrophy, atrophy and metaplasia. And we will be dealing about the cellular adaptations in detail later on in the video. But before that, as I told you, we need to have a clear picture that what will actually happen to a cell if it is subjected to stimuli, right? So one such response is that the cell will adapt to the stimuli. But which kind of stimuli? That stimuli which is non-injurious, just causing the alteration in the physiological properties of the cell. Okay, clear? What is the second stimuli? The second stimuli is lethal stimuli. Lethal stimuli, right? So what does that mean? Lethal stimuli, right? So lethal stimuli means a stimuli that is injurious. That is injurious. That can lead to injury to the cell. Right? That can lead to injury to the cell. Now, again, it depends on two things. It depends on the duration of the injury. If the duration of the injury is transient, what do you mean by transient? That it is short-lived, right? If it is short-lived, if it is transient, it leads to reversible injury. Okay, it leads to reversible injury. If the lethal stimuli is persistent means it stays for a longer period of time, then it leads to irreversible injury. Okay, it leads to irreversible injury. That means it cannot be reversed even if the external stimuli is removed. So what will happen if there is irreversible injury to the cell? Ultimately, cell has to die. So the cell death will occur. What after that? There will be, after the cell dies, what happens? There are morphological changes in the cell. There will be morphological changes in cell. And what are these morphological changes? In the form of necrosis, right? Apoptosis and necroptosis and pyroptosis. Don't worry, we will be dealing with all these topics as well in another video. But for now, just concentrate, just make a scene in your mind that what will happen if a cell is subjected to stress. Okay, we will be dealing with them one by one. So firstly, we did the altered physiological stimuli. Secondly, we dealt with lethal stimuli. Right? Did you get an image? Now moving to the third stimuli. The third stimuli is chronic injurious stimuli. If there is chronic injurious stimuli, what will happen to the cell? If there is chronic injurious stimuli, what will happen to the cell? If there is chronic injurious stimuli, then it will lead to what? Intracellular accumulations. Okay, intracellular accumulation. What does that mean? That there will be accumulation of what? For example, there will be accumulation of glycogen, there will be accumulation of fats, there will be accumulation of proteins. And for example, we say that there is calcification in the tissue. That is nothing, just the accumulation of calcium. Okay, so this was the third stimuli. And the fourth one is, if we go back, we were reading, we dealt with three stimuli, and the fourth one is cumulative sublethal stimuli. What does that mean? Cumulative lethal stimuli. Cumulative lethal stimuli. What does the word cumulative means? Cumulative means it is happening from a long period of time and it is collecting like a stack of piles. If we keep on putting a coin over a coin over a coin, we get a pile of coins, a stack of coins, like that. If this lethal, the injurious, the sublethal stimuli, if there is cumulative effect of the sublethal stimuli over a long period of time, that will lead to ultimately cellular aging, right? That will lead to cellular aging. So these were the four types of stimuli. These were the four types of stimuli a cell is subjected to and how the cell responds to these kind of stimuli. So we have a clear picture in our mind. So now we move to our topic, which I have told you that we will be dealing in detail in this video, that is cellular adaptations. Cellular adaptations, right? Okay. Now, I've told you earlier how many types of cellular adaptations are there. One was hyperplasia. Second was hypertrophy. Third was atrophy. Fourth was metaplasia. Fifth was dysplasia. Did I say dysplasia before? No, because dysplasia is not a cellular adaptation. So we have to remember that dysplasia is not a cellular adaptation. Okay. Now we will be dealing each adaptation in a little detail. Firstly, we will start with hyperplasia. Okay. So what does hyperplasia means? That there will be increase in number of cells. Just imagine a small baby, if there is any injury, अगर छोटा बच्चा होता है वो गिर जाता है, वो क्या करता है? He starts crying. Why he starts crying? Because he wants to draw attention of everybody. वो चाहता है फटाफट सारे लोग उसके पास आ जाएं. जितने ज़्यादा लोग आएंगे उसको लगेगा okay, people are giving attention to me. So baby starts feeling better. Same ways. There will be, if the cell is subjected to stress, there will be increase in number of cells. Now, why there is increase in number of cells? Because there is increase in recruitment. There is increase in recruitment and activation of stem cells. There is increase in recruitment and activation of stem cells. Remember, hyperplasia is usually associated with hypertrophy. Okay. Now, hyperplasia, the examples, it can be both physiological as well as pathological, right? It can be physiological as well as pathological. What are the examples of physiological hyperplasia? Number 1, breast during puberty and lactation. Breast during puberty and lactation. Second example of physiological hyperplasia is uterus during pregnancy. And the third example, very important example, it has been asked many times as a question, there is a compensatory hyperplasia. What is compensatory hyperplasia? That usually occurs in liver after partial hepatectomy. Okay, so that occurs in liver after partial hepatectomy. What are the examples of pathological hyperplasia? Very two classic examples. Number 1, endometrial hyperplasia. And the second one, prostatic hyperplasia, जिसको हम प्यार से क्या बोलते हैं? BHP, benign prostatic hyperplasia. Now remember, very important question, endometrial hyperplasia, it leads to endometrial carcinoma type 1 endometrial carcinoma. Okay, so this was all about hyperplasia, increase in the number of cells, right? Can be physiological as well as pathological, right? Now we move to next adaptation, that is hypertrophy. Okay, that is hypertrophy. What does hypertrophy means? That there is increase in size of cells. How the cell size will increase? What is the reason behind it? There will be increase in synthesis of cytosolic proteins. Okay, the reason behind this is increase in the synthesis of cytosolic proteins. Like hyperplasia, it is also both physiological as well as pathological, right? So what are the examples of physiological hypertrophy? Pregnant uterus. Next, breast in puberty and lactation. Third one is very common, हम सब ने देखा है, skeletal muscle hypertrophy. किन के अंदर होती है? In bodybuilders and athletes. Okay, so these were the physiological causes of hypertrophy. Pathological cause of hypertrophy, very classic example. What is the example? Cardiac muscle hypertrophy, usually due to hypertension or regurgitation. Okay, so this was all about hypertrophy. Hypertrophy is increase in the size of the cells. It is both physiological as well as pathological. Okay, now we move to the third cellular adaptation, that is atrophy. It is very important. Atrophy is very important. Lot of questions has been asked from this. So what does atrophy means? That there will be decrease in size of cells, plus as well as there is decrease in number of cells also. So ultimately, if we combine both of them, what we will get? There will be decrease in size of organ. Now we were talking about the cell thing, the cell number, the cell size. Now in atrophy we are talking about the organ. There is decrease in the size of the organ. Okay, so now what is the mechanism behind it? Why it is happening? It can happen because of two causes. Either there is decrease protein synthesis, or there can be increase in protein degradation. Common logic, या तो प्रोटीन कम बनेगा या ज़्यादा टूटेगा. Okay, so if there is an increase in protein degradation, it occurs by two major pathways. What are the two major pathways? Number one is the very important pathway. You all must have read about it in your biochemistry. Ubiquitin proteasome pathway. Okay, ubiquitin proteasome pathway. And the second pathway is autophagy. Autophagy. If we divide this term autophagy, we'll get an idea about it. What does auto means? Auto means self. Phagy means eating. इससे explain हो रहा है नाम से कि self eating. Okay. Now we'll deal it in detail also. Don't worry. So this I told you that there is either decreased protein synthesis or increased degradation. Okay. So now, yes, I told you there are two pathways, ubiquitin proteasome pathway or the autophagy. There is a common link. There is a common link between these two pathways. Obviously, both of them are for protein degradation, but there is one more common link. What is that common link? That both of them cause activation of release of ubiquitin ligase enzyme. Both will cause the activation of ubiquitin ligase enzyme, which will ultimately cause the release of ubiquitin, right? That will cause the release of ubiquitin. And now ubiquitin has a very special tendency to get to the target protein and degrade it, damage it. Okay, so now there is release of ubiquitin. Now two things can happen, या तो ये होगा या ये होगा. अगर what if it follows the ubiquitin proteasome pathway? What if it follows that? Then what will happen? Proteasomes, these are the special organelles. Okay, they will come, and what they will do? Proteasomes, they will degrade the protein. Okay, so in that ways atrophy will happen. Okay, what if it follows the autophagy? What will happen? There will be formation of autophagosome. Then what will happen? It will fuse with lysosome. Then what will happen? Lysosome will release enzymes. These enzymes will digest the protein. That will ultimately lead to atrophy. Okay, so likewise other cellular adaptations, atrophy is also both physiological as well as pathological. What are the examples of physiological atrophy? Number one, fetal development during embryogenesis. Fetal development during embryogenesis. Second example, atrophic endometrium. Atrophic endometrium. And this atrophic endometrium is the precursor for type 2 endometrial carcinoma, right? And now the pathological cause. The pathological cause for atrophy is disuse atrophy following immobilization. Disuse atrophy following immobilization. Okay, so this was all about atrophy. Now if we move to the last adaptation, okay, we move to the last adaptation, that is metaplasia. Now what does metaplasia means? What is the basic definition of metaplasia? That means that one mature adult cell is replaced by another mature adult cell. Okay, one mature adult cell is replaced by another mature adult cell. Now again, what is the mechanism behind it? क्या cause हो सकता है? What is the reason behind it? So the reason behind it is reprogramming of tissue stem cells. Okay, so the mechanism behind is the reprogramming of tissue stem cells. So one important thing I want to tell you about metaplasia is that the outcome of the metaplasia is mainly responsible for the nomenclature of the metaplasia. It doesn't matter who the cell was. पास्ट से कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ता, प्रेजेंट में क्या है हमें उससे फर्क पड़ता है. सो सेल अभी क्या है, that will decide the nomenclature of the metaplasia. Okay, so now metaplasia is mainly of two types. Number one is epithelial metaplasia. Another one is mesenchymal metaplasia. Okay, mesenchymal metaplasia. Classic example of mesenchymal metaplasia is myositis ossificans. Okay, now epithelial metaplasia, it is more common. Okay, it is more common than mesenchymal metaplasia. What are the examples of epithelial metaplasia? Number one, squamous metaplasia. Okay, squamous metaplasia. It is the most common type of metaplasia. So what is the example of squamous metaplasia? Imagine the normal respiratory tract epithelium. The normal respiratory tract epithelium is pseudostratified ciliated columnar epithelium. If such epithelium is subjected to stress in the form of smoking, in a chronic smoker, what will happen? It will get changed into stratified squamous epithelium. So ultimately, what is forming? Stratified squamous epithelium. So what is the name? Squamous metaplasia. Okay, so basically in respiratory tract epithelium, okay, respiratory tract epithelium, that is squamous metaplasia. And remember, this squamous metaplasia is a precursor for squamous cell carcinoma. Okay, squamous cell carcinoma. Another important example, there's a question usually asked, which vitamin is linked to squamous metaplasia? So the answer is vitamin A. Vitamin A deficiency is usually linked to squamous metaplasia. Now the second one is, in this epithelial metaplasia, the second one is columnar metaplasia. The second one is columnar metaplasia. Columnar metaplasia, the classic example is Barrett's esophagus. Barrett's esophagus. What happens in Barrett's esophagus? Usually a person with gastroesophageal reflux disease, also called as GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disease. If a person is having gastroesophageal reflux disease, there will be reflux of the acid contents into the lower 1/3 of the esophagus. Okay, so what will happen? That usually the stratified squamous lining of the esophageal epithelium is converted to tall columnar lining. That's why the name columnar metaplasia, because the tall columnar cells are resistant to the gastric acid. Okay, so that's why this adaptation has taken place. So the Barrett's esophagus is a classical example. Another name for Barrett's esophagus is intestinal. Not the another name, actually the hallmark feature of Barrett's esophagus is intestinal metaplasia. Why it is called as intestinal metaplasia? Because of the goblet cells. Goblet cells are usually a part of the normal intestine. What are goblet cells? They are the mucin containing cells, right? They are the mucin containing cells usually present in the normal intestinal epithelium. But if you find it in the esophageal epithelium, then what should strike in your mind? That there can be columnar metaplasia, means that there can be, the diagnosis can be Barrett's esophagus. Okay, Barrett's esophagus. Now one important point I need to tell you, how do you differentiate? How do you differentiate that this goblet cell is of the intestinal epithelium or of the Barrett's esophagus? So for that we do a staining, and the stain that is used is Alcian blue stain. Alcian blue stain, and that should be at a specific pH. Which pH we should prefer? Obviously acidic pH, and that should be at pH 2.5. Alcian blue stain at pH 2.5, that will stain the mucin as blue. Okay, that will stain the mucin as blue stain, right? So now the third metaplasia in epithelial metaplasia is apocrine metaplasia. Apocrine metaplasia. Remember, this apocrine metaplasia is not pre-malignant. Remember. Okay. And this Barrett's esophagus leads to adenocarcinoma. So squamous metaplasia was leading to squamous cell carcinoma, Barrett's esophagus leading to adenocarcinoma, but there is an exclusion to this, that apocrine metaplasia is not pre-malignant. Okay. So if we see in this histological picture, can you appreciate that it is a very beautiful stratified squamous lining, okay, stratified squamous lining. But now what is here? Tall columnar cells, okay. And what are these? These are the goblet cells that I was talking about. Goblet cells, clear cells, mucin containing cells. Okay, so this is the histological picture of Barrett's esophagus. Now if we move further, if you look at this is a special staining. I told you about special stain. Which was the special stain we were using to differentiate the goblet cells of Barrett's and intestinal and normal intestine, Alcian blue. So this is a stain of Alcian blue. Can you see this? Very beautifully stained, blue stain. These all are goblet cells. Okay, these all are goblet cells, right? So this was all about the cellular adaptations. Did you notice one thing? We read hyperplasia. Okay, in hyperplasia, endometrial hyperplasia was a precursor for type 1 endometrial carcinoma. In atrophy endometrium is a precursor for type 2 endometrial carcinoma. In metaplasia, squamous metaplasia, columnar metaplasia, precursor for squamous cell carcinoma and adenocarcinoma. But in hypertrophy, there was no any premalignant condition. So out of all the cellular adaptation, hypertrophy is not a premalignant condition. Okay, just remember that. So this was all for today. Thank you so much. I'll be soon coming up with more videos. Stay tuned. Thank you.